Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our talk, Becoming the Beacon, Enlightened Leadership in Uncertain Times with Wade Thomas. Hello, Wade.
Hi, how are you?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. We're going to let folks come on the call for just a minute. I know the door is just open, so folks are joining us, and I want to say thank you, and welcome. And we'll get started here in just a moment. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and show my screen. Here we go. There it is. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the fact that you have lots of options for where you spend your time, and choosing to spend it with us, learning and growing. Is a privilege to us, and we feel honored. So my name is Anissa Avon, and I want to say thank you. And today we are speaking with the CEO and founder of Aim to Win, Wade Thomas, and his talk, Becoming the Beacon, Enlightened Leadership in Uncertain Times. Let me see if I can switch. There we go. And before we begin, I want to say thank you to our sponsors. The Whitmarsh Consulting Group is one of our sponsors, and we truly appreciate all of David Whitmarsh and his team's assistance in making this Leading in a Crisis Summit possible. Without his team, we wouldn't have been able to do this. So the Whitmarsh Consulting Group is a group of very talented individuals that specialize in multi-channel marketing strategy, and specifically in the HR space and HR information technology consulting. I also want to say thank you to Insperity, HR that makes a difference. When I reached out to Insperity and I said, would you mind, do you think you could, we really love you, to be our sponsor, they didn't hesitate. They said, what are you doing? We love it. How can we help? And then I went back and I said, so I'd really like it if you could offer something of high value to all of our attendees. And we talked a little bit about it. And because 2020 is the year of massive change, and we all know that every HR budget pretty much on the planet is being upended. Whatever you had planned on doing in your HR in 2020 is now upside down on its ear, out the window. So they said, well, how about a free HR financial analysis report and debrief? And when I dug a little deeper, I found out that that's a really big deal. It will take our business performance advisor over there somewhere between 3 and 10 hours to provide this free analysis and then a confidential report and one-on-one debrief. And I kind of pushed back and I said, you know that not everyone that takes advantage of this is going to be a good fit for your services. Are you sure you want that kind of cost associated with this freebie? And they never hesitated. So they said, absolutely, we're here to help, we're here to serve, and this is the kind of value that we'd like to represent. So to take advantage of that, head on over to TurnKeyCoachingSolutions.net, HR report, and that HR and R in HR report is case sensitive, capitalized. Want to say thank you also to our internal team that provides data-driven crisis strategy and strategic planning and alignment program. We have turned a number of our programs into specific responses for our current and post-pandemic needs. And one of those is a name your own price strategic alignment process. We know there are going to be many teams who have lost executives and other leaders. We know that whatever size organization a company had prior to March of this year, it may look very different. And on the other side of this, which there will be an other side, and Wade's going to talk about how we get through this, alignment and a very specific and growth strategy is going to be necessary. So if we can support you with that, we would be honored. So as I had mentioned, my name is Anissa Avon, and I'm the CEO of TurnKey Coaching and Development Solutions. We are an enterprise learning and development organization, and we provide outplacement services and virtual training and coaching and training and facilitation. We have experts facilitators like Wade in every major metropolitan area in the US and in key hubs globally. And when I reached out to my team and I said, what are we going to do? We can't just sit and watch our clients and our peers struggle through this. How can we help? Within a few days, we had put together this virtual summit, Leading in a Crisis, with 40 plus experts and counting. We started out thinking it would just be Wednesday and Thursday in April, and now it's every Wednesday and Thursday through May. It's free, and we're adding new speakers and new talks all the time. So thank you for joining us and honoring us with the privilege of your company. Do let me know if there's a particular topic or subject that we haven't addressed or that you'd like for us to go deeper on. We want this to be of service for you. Now, super excited to introduce you to Wade. Wade is the founder and principal of Aim to Win. He has a consultancy focused on bringing out the best in high performers, teams, executives, organizations. He brings over 20 years of experience in leadership and training and executive coaching to his clients. And even as I think it was 5 years ago, you were working as a CHRO for Meritage Homes.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah. So he doesn't just teach these principles. He's actually been a part of the HR strategy team for a multi-billion-dollar organization. Did I get that right?
Billion, yeah.
Yeah, I knew it was. Tell us a little bit about you, Wade, what we're going to learn today, and what makes you the expert.
I've been in the field of leadership and talent development now for almost 25 years. And, it's just seeing the various stages we go through. I've been through the ups, the downs, many uncertain times. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Is we're going to talk about what you as a leader can and should be doing in these times. And for those of you who are in HR, what should you be training your leaders? How should you be teaching them, directing them, coaching them on how they can really be that beacon for their people? Because now more than ever, people are really looking for a beacon, somebody to guide them.
Yeah, that is an understatement of the universe right now, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even those of us who are highly tuned to effective leadership and what we should do, we still need guidance. So let's jump right in.
All right. See if we get the technology to work.
Right.
And as we do this, I note that one of the things about virtual meetings that's just great is that we have people from Boise all the way over to Richmond, Virginia in one meeting. So really exciting.
I agree. We are finding that a number of our clients have decided that they just might keep this whole virtual thing going even after. So we're going to see some disrupted workplaces on many levels.
I think so. I do. I really think that, the movement towards sort of that unsettled, that moving around environment, working from wherever you want to work, I think it's just going to accelerate during all this.
I agree.
So, it's going to get more and more. So this is exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of this format, and it's really a great opportunity to pull people from all over the world. Agreed. Okay. So as I mentioned, today we're talking about how you become that beacon. It is so important. And when you're in a storm like we're in, beacons historically have guided people home. And that's what you need to do. You need to be working on how you guide your folks to the end of this and to that next level. And there's a couple leaders that really come to mind. The slide will move. There we go. They came to mind for me. We have Golda Meir, who was one of the key founders of the state of Israel. Very uncertain time there. They were founding a country with enemies on all sides, and led them through that. Winston Churchill, of course, very well known, was Prime Minister of England during their darkest hour and their most uncertain times. And a gentleman on the right, Hank Paulson, who was the Treasury Secretary in 2008, a more recent example of somebody that really helped stave off the global depression and really enhance the role of the U.S. Treasury going forward. So not only did Mr. Paulson kind of be a leader in those times, but what I really want to capture there is the idea that he took it forward after the uncertain times were over. And so what do all they have in common? Well, first of all, they're leaders versus managers. A lot of times we think of those two being the same, but as I think most of you know, they're not. Managers really manage the work, things like that. Leaders inspire, they show the way, they give the direction, and it's really a step above. And each of these people were much different than the person that just manages that day to day. The second thing is each of them provided a vision and a way forward. So in the uncertain times, there's a lot of clouds going on, and these people really were the beacon. They said, this is what's going to happen. This is how we move forward, and this is how we move beyond. You also provide a lot of energy and inspiration. And that's a key now too, because energy levels are at an all-time low. And you need to, as a leader, provide that. They were involved. They weren't hidden away in an ivory tower. They weren't, stuck in an office. They were out there. They were with the people. They were the face of what they were trying to drive. And also, they all created a sense of unity in their spaces, a sense of community. They were able to rally everybody. And those 5 things are really the key. And that's the stuff we're going to talk about today is how do you get there as a leader, and how would you help your leaders get there?
Great.
So there's really 5 keys for real leading in uncertain times. And it starts with the inner game. And we're going to talk about these individually. It really starts with getting that inner game right, getting the right mindset. Then moving on to your folks, how do you connect? How do you build that chemistry and really enhance it? Because now more than ever, it's important. How do you inform? How do you keep that communication flow going? How do you lead? How do you be that leader that they look at? And it's different than when you're in uncertain times. Leadership is different than it is in normal, everyday kind of times. And finally, that last point I made in the previous slide, how do you build community? How do you really build an esprit de corps that is really so necessary during these times? So we're going to start with you. And I call it your core. And these are really the key mindsets when it comes to leading in uncertain times. First of all, confidence. You've really got to project a confident demeanor. You need to understand that everybody's looking at you. That's one thing we forget when we're leaders is, we're celebrities. People are watching what we do. They're watching how we act. And our emotions, more than anybody, are contagious. People are going to really reflect back on our emotions. And if you come in confident, you're going to see confidence in your folks. If you come in, worried or fearful, then you're going to see the same. Now, with that confidence, though, it is important that you need to really acknowledge your feelings. You need to, you can't pretend like nothing's uncertain and you know it all, because it's just not the case. What you got to be careful for is that you don't feed the negative emotions. You have to have that confidence. You can acknowledge your emotions, but don't feed into the rest of them. The second piece of this is outlook. And, as I mentioned earlier, it's really important to have a vision, to know where you're going. You want to be a beacon, but the beacon has to sit somewhere. And so you have to be able to know where exactly that beacon is before you can guide people into it. So have that vision. The second thing is look at facts. And we get so overwhelmed with so-called information through all kinds of media, whether it be Fox News, CNN, social media, online stuff, your friend, your neighbor, some guy in the street with a sign. There's so many different types of information, but a lot of what's out there that is portrayed as facts is really speculation. And you have to be able to figure that out. You've got to be able to separate the facts and stay to those and put the speculation on the side. It's very important as you really think about your outlook and have that vision, is to stay focused on that. The other big area of focus is you've really got to control what you can control. The tendency for people is to really just be overwhelmed with the decisions they have out there, the things that they have to work on. And, when you have 20 different things you're trying to accomplish, you're not going to accomplish any of them, especially when 17 of those 20 are outside your control. So what you really need to do as part of your outlook in your mind is figure out, okay, what is it that I control? What is in my sphere of control? And focus on those. Because if you focus on those and you accomplish those, then you're going to be able to move yourself forward. You're going to be able to provide that leadership that you need because you're focusing on what really matters. The third one is resilience, and this is really a big deal in these times. There's going to be days where you're going to be knocked down. It's not going to be every day is a happy day by any means. I mean, there's going to be some tough things. You're going to have some days that are just lost days. And what's really important, though, is how you bounce back. You can't get yourself stuck in that quagmire of just, you had a bad day, this bad event happened. You have to be able to bounce back from that. And there's a couple of things that will help you here. And we could talk all day on resilience, but, a couple of really quick hitters is, take initiative. The best way to kind of get out of that victim mindset or that mindset of despair or depression or whatever it may be for you is to take action. Because once you take action, it really allows you to see the opportunities that are there and see it. And then once you're focused on opportunity and not the bad things, then your mindset's going to turn around and you're going to start generating that positive energy and a positive mindset. So it's really important to get moving, take those initiatives, get out there. And finally, one of the things that you can do ahead of time to help with resilience is self-care. And, and I know, Anissa, in your practice, you've seen this a lot. Our tendency is to, when we have uncertain times or we have difficult times, we bury our heads into work. And, we work the long hours and we really drive at it because, it is the key. But I'm telling you, you have to put aside time for self-care. You've got to figure out what it is that helps you recharge your battery, because you're going to drain that battery, and your battery it's not energizing. It's not going to renew itself. It's not a renewable battery. You have to recharge it from time to time. So getting the time to do the self-care is so important. And finally, energy. Energy is a big part of your mindset. And, basically, the positive energy is what you put out in the world. So if you're putting out negative energy in the world, you're going to be surrounded by the negative energy coming back to you. You want to be positive here. And I think of this as the light coming from the beacon. You're the beacon, you've got the vision, you know where you're standing, but you got to put the light out there. And people are really going to react to that energy. And so you've got to keep that positive energy going around you. And a couple of tricks for that: make sure you find humor. Sometimes it's not readily available, but, make sure you're finding it. Make sure that, you're with people that, are loose or are, funny. If you have to, watch a TV show, read something funny online, but make sure you incorporate that humor into what you're doing. The other thing for mindset, and this is not like great for mindset of yourself, but for others, is, praise people, encourage people. Because when you're doing that, it has an effect on you also. And, it really, it feels good to praise people. And so you want to make sure you're doing that on a regular basis, not just for their benefit, but also for yours.
Yeah.
So taking a broader step on how do you develop your core?
Can I ask you a couple of questions about that other one? And while we're doing that, folks that are on the call, if there were a piece about this that really resonated with you or a takeaway from what you're looking at here, just write it in the chat. I have a question for you, Wade. Each one of these requires, in my mind, a certain level of authenticity, a certain level of vulnerability, or a certain level of truthfulness, right? So how do you reconcile that the first quadrant, project a confident demeanor, with, for example, facts versus speculation, when there's so much ambiguity right now?
Yeah, so one thing that history shows us is that we're going to get through this. Yeah. Never has there been a period of uncertain times or a period of crisis in world history where the human species has gone extinct. And so we know we're going to get through it. And so you have to kind of go to that space and get your confidence. And and we'll talk later about how you communicate, because you don't want to, you don't want to be out there communicating your own speculations as fact, but you do want to be confident. And I really don't know what's going on now. I don't know the future, but I'm confident we're going to get through it. And so that's so important.
So you're saying find the pieces, just like find the humor. You may have to search for it. Find the items where you can be confident, such as, we will get through this. There will be another side to this. And that piece allows a leader to be authentic and real, as opposed to grandiose and pathological at times. I mean, we're seeing that sometimes in leadership, that's, thumping their chest and saying, we're all great, when in fact, that's not accurate, right?
Right.
So you're saying,
And that's a big part of when I talk about messaging a little bit later, and and how you communicate. Authenticity is so important, and if things aren't great, don't say they're great, because they're not, but I'm confident they'll be great again.
That you can say. That's good. Thank you.
Catching up a little bit with the comments here, I think Andrew Cuomo, again, regardless of politics, and he's an interesting one because he's had some missteps as well, but he's overcame it, and that's part of this too. Is as a leader, you're going to have missteps, and you need to be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
And fail forward, to borrow a term from the leadership development world. I agree with NA. Energy is so important, and that's maybe half the battle, and a lot of these other things build into that energy box, right? Your confidence, having a solid outlook, having resilience. That's all really part of energy as well. Fail fast, yep. Trying things out, experimenting, big deal. That's also a big part of resilience too, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's and a very good point from Sheila as well. The energy you put out is the energy you get back. Absolutely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So good comments. So I want to kind of move on to how do you develop your core? And for the longest time, I thought this was sit-ups, and but there's more to it when you're a leader. And so here's some tricks and some things that you can really do to get those mindsets in the right place. And by the way, we are spending a lot of time on mindset because if you don't get that right, none of the rest of the stuff I'm talking about is going to work. So like I mentioned, make sure the first thing you do is enjoy, laugh, have fun. Do what you can to have that fun. It's part of self-care, but it can also be part of the business world. If you're working in an office, as many are still, doesn't mean you have to be all sad and like hunkered down. Have some fun. If you're working remotely, do things like pajama day, or incorporate fun, because that really helps develop these mindsets. The second one is that I find very useful is reflect. Have gratitude. Every day I start my day with thinking through, what am I grateful for? And this is not a 1 or 2 minute thought process. I try to do a deep dive. Here's what I'm grateful for, and here's why. And so, one great example is, if we're sitting here 30 years from now, we're all in quarantine, we're not seeing anybody but, our family. And now here, I'm giving a talk in front of however many people it is, now and over the coming months, and I'll have 8 or 9 meetings throughout the day, and with friends and professional associates. So I'm just really grateful that technology has allowed that, and so being grateful is really a big part of keeping that mindset and developing that core. Also perspective, being able to step back. I talked about this already. History tells us one thing, we're going to get through this. And so you have to keep that big picture perspective and try to do that every day too. Think about what happens after. Think about the opportunities that are coming out of this, not just the day-to-day uncertainties. And then finally, discern. I talked about facts a couple times, and so I won't get back into that. But another thing I want to talk about here is it's really important psychologically that you control what's coming into your head. And so if you watch the news or read the news or however you absorb the mainstream news, it's going to be a lot of negative. And there's reason for that. Negativity sells newspapers, sells ads, gets followers. And so the motivation there is to do that. And so you get a lot of negativity. What you need to do is you need to seek out the good news and get a balance. And I'm not saying you should be consuming 100% good news either, because then you're out of balance the other way. But you have to balance what's going in your head, or else you're going to find yourself getting into a negative energy zone. That's something you don't want. So find that balance. Actually, a great website that I recommend is goodnewsnetwork.org. They curate good news. And, I go to that, used to be every day, but now it's every couple of days because sometimes it takes a while for them to build up. I read fast. So.
Excellent. Now you're probably going to get to this later. So tell me to hold that question if we're going to get to this. At some point, I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, any of us that have been on this journey of developing ourselves for a while or developing our leadership capacity, we have heard the power of gratitude. We have heard about maintaining a perspective and how really great leaders have a variety of perspective, and they can and why balance is important, etc. But at some point I'd like for you to talk a little bit about, okay, I get the theory, but what's the difference between someone that does this versus someone that doesn't, which can make the case for why these theories are actually critically important?
Yeah, so I mean, this will play out throughout the rest of my talk, but I'll address that now as well. The difference is if you're not exercising this gratitude, if you're not controlling what goes in your mind, and doing those things and developing those mindsets, then you're going to be the leader that's lost. And you're going to have that negative energy that surrounds you. And we've all seen it. We've all experienced it. The leader that goes into panic mode. And if all you're hearing is negative energies, if you're not stepping back and taking a perspective, if you're not laughing and having fun, you're going to be that person that just brings the team down. And it's kind of interesting because you mentioned that, a lot of leaders have learned this over time. And I think that's true, but I also think it's not.
Okay.
I think, in my experience, I don't know, in any pool of leaders, you probably got 30% that are really great, if that. And so, it's really important now more than ever, though, even for that 30% that might have this, because it's easy to have these mindsets, in, say, 2016. It's not so easy right now. And so this really needs to be drilled home, and it needs to be planful. It's got to be structured. It can't just leave it to happenstance anymore. We really have to kind of push that in. I love Sheila's comment. Every day I try to make a point of making my teammates laugh via instant messaging. A great example. Just really helping get that laughter out there. This particular part of the presentation deals with yourself, but also you need to help your other folks get their mindset right too, right?
Yeah. Nick said, reflection based on giving without looking for an immediate return.
Yeah. Kind of the idea is, you're reflecting with yourself, and you're, kind of, looking at the gratitude and looking at those kind of things. The return is the gratitude. The return is really inside. It's your inner game. And so.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to move on to the next phase, which is connection. And there's really 5 elements of connection. And this is how that you sort of build that chemistry with your team. Now, some of this you'll have done already, as if you're a great leader. But what happens in times of uncertainty is those ties start to break. And so you really need to kind of reestablish those ties, and you need to pay very careful attention to how you're doing it. The first step there is personal presence, and having a high presence, being out there, being with your people, whether it be in the office environment if you're still there, or whether it be on Slack or another IMing tool like Sheila mentioned, whether it be on Zoom, you need to be visible. What happens is you build trust and credibility when people see you and hear from you. And when you're in a remote environment, you need to be doing this with each of your people every day, if not more. And, because it's even more important now to have that point of contact. And that trust and credibility is so important. The second one is transparency. And that's really, you want to have, like I mentioned earlier, you want to be honest with your own feelings. You don't want to, hide them. You don't want to go into stoic mode. Because again, if you're honest with how you feel and you admit that you're uncertain and you have concerns, but you're confident, then what you've done is you've built this bond with your team. And, it's so powerful. But oftentimes we have been taught throughout our lives that as a leader, you should kind of keep these feelings to yourself. And I'm telling you now, in times of uncertainty, people want to see you as human. And that's very important, but don't forget about the confidence part as well. The third thing is you need to provide a safe space, and this is not 6-foot social distancing I'm talking about here. This is a psychological safe space. So this is the opportunity for people to voice their fears and concerns and to have you listen. People really need to be heard, especially now. They want to know that you're just not ignoring your feelings. And that leads into my next one, which is patience. And this can be difficult because what will happen, and I think most leaders have probably seen this, is you're liable to get the same questions over and over and over again. I'm coaching about 25 people right now, and they're all saying the same thing. It's, I answer the same question over and over and over again. And, part of it screams like, I'm tired of answering this question. Just listen to me. But that's not what you need to do. People need to do this because they're processing, and you have to help them process. You have to help them figure out their own space in all this, figure out their own solutions. It's very important that you have that patience with them, allow them to be there. And then finally, a broad comment on messaging, and this is, I'm not going to get into the details of what you should message because it's different for every company and it's going to be different tomorrow than it is today. But I want to talk about the broader way you plan out your messaging, the broader way that you frame them. You want to be framing it in a human way. I'm human like you are, a very authentic way. And we kind of talked about that, don't say everything's going to be great when it's not. And in a very empathetic way. You want to make sure that your people understand that you get them. Yeah, you're the leader, but, you're not some heavenly being. You get what they're going through. You're going through a lot of the same things. But again, the difference is the confidence, right? You have to do all this, have that humanness, have that empathy, but do it with confidence. Because again, they're looking to you for that. And, another big part of your messaging and a theme that you really need to kind of work in there is, you acknowledge it's difficult, but nobody on your team, yourself included, is going through it alone. And so it's so important that you bring that up. We're all going through this together. We're a team. We're going to talk about community in a little bit. So after you have the connection, the big part is inform. 4 steps here that I want to talk about. First of all, you want to seize the early opportunity to inform. And as we're sitting here, we're a few weeks into this or more. And so some of that early opportunity is gone, but as new developments occur, you want to be out in front of it. And the reason is that people's hunger for information is strongest at the beginning of uncertain times. So oftentimes we have a tendency to not want to communicate until we have the perfect message, until we know all the information. And I'm telling you, do not wait for that. Get out there with what you have early because that's when they're going to want to consume it, and that's where you're going to have the biggest impact. The second piece is make sure you're informing often. You really want to be, talking all the time. Making sure you're transparent, you're keeping that information flow going, and you want to be consistent. Even if you're saying the same thing over and over and over again, you're really reinforcing what's out there. And what you don't want to happen is, if you're not informing often, it becomes a vacuum. And what happens in a vacuum is it gets filled. And it's going to get filled by rumors. It's going to get filled by speculation. It's going to be filled by CNN. And you don't want that. So you want to make sure you're informing often. Emphasizing honesty. Again, like you said earlier, if things aren't great, they're not great. So don't sugarcoat. And finally, don't overpromise. That's the worst thing you can do. Don't go out there and say, we have 15 days and this thing's going to be over with if it's not going to be over with, or if you don't know. We've seen so many examples of the overpromising in this particular situation. And, you can't do that. Because once you overpromise, then you've lost the credibility and the trust. And you're really back to square one.
That piece about losing trust, the 5 elements of connection that you've mentioned and the core, it really is all about, in essence, in many ways, it's about building, maintaining, and really having a total commitment to sustaining that trust. And false promises, being dishonest or overconfident when you're not, or lacking that knowledge about the importance of communicating often. Even if you don't know what to say, it's still about communicating. Nothing has changed, but we're still here for you. Whatever it is, it's about building trust.
Yeah, it really is. And the thing is your beacon. If you're a beacon and nobody believes that beacon's in the right place, or if that beacon moves around, or if the beacon's sitting in the middle of the ocean and you get there and this isn't where we get off, then it's not effective at all.
Well said.
Okay, so the next step is leadership. And now more than ever, like I mentioned, people want to be led. And there's 4 leadership principles in uncertain times that you really need to focus on. First is you got to be decisive. You want to be thoughtful and you want to be strategic, but you don't want to get analysis paralysis. You got to be decisive. And there's a balance here, right? You don't want to overreact. And my goodness, have we seen overreaction during this one? At every level. And, you have to be kind of balance that need to be decisive with not overreacting. So make sure what you're doing, make sure you've thought about it a little bit at least. Strategically think about it. So if I do this, it's going to lead to X, then it's going to lead to Y, then it's going to lead to Z, and am I happy with Z? And better yet, take the time to start with Z and work your way backwards. But the important thing here is that you make a decision. The worst decisions out there are the ones that aren't made. So, and again, somebody commented earlier, fail fast. Failing fast is so much better than not failing at all because you didn't do anything. So being decisive is really the first part. Steady and consistent is a big deal during uncertain times, and even more so than normal times. And what you want to be here is you want to be able to give people concrete, specific actions and what they can do. Remember I talked about resilience earlier and how taking action is one of the best things you can do to really overcome the adversity. Well, you want to help your people get there too. So it's great to paint a broad vision, things like that. That's important. But give them specific, concrete actions that they need to do and that you're going to do. And that brings it down to this place of realness. Because when things are all in the clouds, all that kind of stuff, like now, we're talking about, okay, the economy is going to reopen. Great. What does that mean? And of course, there's no answer to that because we're not getting specific, concrete actions. While you're doing that, make sure you're providing alignment. So give them a specific, concrete actions, but do it as a team. So here's what each of us are doing, and here's how it aligns to the overall goal. Again, another, I won't dive into that area, but another great case study of terrible alignment exists in the world today. Yeah. And finally, this is a big one that, I actually use this during turnaround situations, when I'm coaching and consulting in those spaces, but there's so much value in repeating the message in uncertain times. Even though you think, people are tired of you, they're not. You repeat the same message over and over and over again. What happens is the neurons in people's brains start connecting and making that connection. And so what you're saying becomes a habit to them. And it becomes reality. If you say it once, not really. Say it twice, not really. But over and over and over again, it really becomes their paradigm. The next one is empower. So this is one that we talk about anytime, and it's every bit as true in uncertain times. But I bring it up here because the tendency during uncertain times and times of crisis is to centralize decision-making. Bring everything to the top. I'm telling you, don't do that. Delegate the decisions. Don't just delegate work. And the leverage the closest to the job role. And the closest to the job role is the people that are going to be most knowledgeable about what's going on are the ones closest to it. It's not going to be the top echelon. So centralizing things at top is not only going to make people feel disengaged and things like that, but it's also going to lead you to bad decisions. And so, driving those decisions down. But finally, the last one that we kind of don't think about much is evaluate. This is a great time to evaluate your leaders, to evaluate your team. This is where you see the true colors. You're going to find stars coming out of this that are not the stars that you had coming in, and vice versa. People really show their true colors during times of adversity and times of uncertainty. You're going to see people that are able to jump in and solve problems. They take the initiative when they're hit with an obstacle, they don't come running to you. They don't hide under their desk. They don't give up and just refuse to work. And by the way, I've seen examples of all this in the last few weeks. But you'll have these people that will jump up and they will solve the problem and they will figure it out. It's a great time to evaluate and figure out, because when all things turn around, these people are going to be your future stars. Yeah. And this can happen at any part of the organization. That's the thing about uncertain times and crisis and adversity is you may find your best leader is a janitor. And, hierarchy means a lot less today. I'm going to catch up on comments a little bit.
Yeah, I want you to address a couple of questions that are in here. What if the over and over is negative, for example, on that repeat the message?
Well, so when the message though that you want to repeat is the message that you kind of put out there, right? And so I hope that when you're crafting the message, it's not an overwhelmingly negative thing. Like we talked about, things are bad. You don't want to sugarcoat it, but here's what we're doing about it. Here's how we're handling it, and I'm confident we're going to get through it. So you can give the bad news, but you also give, here's what we're trying to do. Here's how we're figuring it out. You may not have the solution even, but what you want to be able to convey over and over again is that, we are all working on it. Not me, but we.
And I think something that you said earlier was this is about developing your core to be the beacon that is the most effective leader during a time when leadership is imperative, when effective leadership is imperative. And when it comes to the message you're sharing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it really is about repeating the right message aligned with that core, confidence, facts versus speculation, and on and on. Is that right?
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So getting a message right is important. How many leaders really understand delegation? I haven't seen research on it, but I think it's pretty low. But it's so important though that you help them now more than ever. As much as you can in your role.
Yeah, I was just you were talking about empowering, delegating decisions. I think what we've seen in a lot of our clients is so often the top is making all the decisions because they're leaders and that's what we're supposed to do. And the really effective organizations are also, as you have written, delegating decisions, looking for those superstars, asking for resources and help and innovation and ideas and solutions from the greater group, which empowers them to show up in a different way.
Yeah, exactly. And I've seen it, and I've actually been involved in the top-down hierarchy during the 2008 crisis. And, I understand we have a lot of HR executives on here, and this is a tip for them because I was an HR executive during the 2008 downturn. And, we basically put all the decision into the top 4 of us in the company. But what I did, after I fought the battle of we should include more people and lost, what I did then is I became the voice of the people. And so I got out there as an HR executive and asked those questions, asked the decisions, what would you do? And then I brought it in as my own, and so I was the voice at the table that, gave it the credibility and allowed us to kind of work through that. And then I worked it the other way. I went back to them and said, thanks for that input. That is exactly what we use for this. And so, HR is such an important role right now in navigating all of this and helping our leaders really figure that dynamic out. So if you're an HR executive and you're listening in right now, this is your time. This is your time. Somebody said we're seeing who the real superstars are. This is a great time for HR to be a real superstar. I'm a lighthouse. However, as boots on the ground, I've had that leader repeatedly talk us over a cliff. Unfortunately, different perspective. Yeah, so we all have those leaders, right? And what, kind of the purpose of today is I don't want you to be that leader, number one.
Yeah.
But, just because he's your leader doesn't mean you can't influence. If you're in HR, for instance, that's a great opportunity for you to coach that leader. But even if you're not, I started off my career as a relatively low-level sales manager, and I still coach upwards, and, in these times, the titles don't nearly mean as much. You're going to have that opportunity to kind of grab the horns that maybe you didn't have before.
Yeah. On that note, we oftentimes work with our peers and clients in HR who ask the question, I need to have a better seat at the table. I need to have greater influence and to bring my presence to bear on these decisions. And you just hit it on the head. This is your time.
Yep. This is your time. That's for sure. And kind of the last step here, and it's last just because of the way I did slides, but it's certainly not the least important. It's building community, and that's what gets us through this, is that sense of community. And the first step here, and I think this is a huge one, is we got to celebrate the uniqueness of your team. So you need to spend some time, and if we were doing a workshop here, I'd have you do it right now. But, think about what makes us unique as a team. What are our strengths? Because you have them. And then once you have that, this is an opportunity for validation. Times are tough, but here's the message to your team. I know things are uncertain. Things are really difficult now. And if we were an average team, I'd be terrified. That would just really suck if I were our competitor's team. But we're not. We're us. We are just an awesome team. And because of that, we're going to get through this. And we're going to win. We're not just going to get through it, but we're going to thrive in the next steps. And that's just a great community building messaging. The second phase is, thank you, Sheila. The second phase there is really understanding that nothing develops a team more than difficulty and uncertain times. And if you look at the examples that I gave at the very beginning, Winston Churchill developed a sense of community there, right? Golda Meir developed a sense of community that really continues on to today, and it transcends national boundaries. Having that common goal, that common enemy, if you will, really unites a team. The second thing it does is it's a lot easier to have resilience and bounce back when you're a group than it is when you're by yourself. So understanding that difficulty is such a great advantage to building a team is key. And then the last thing I want to leave you with on the community side is think about your team broader, the broader community. Think about the connectedness you have, outside of your group, whether it be within the industry. Now's a great time to talk to your competitors because we're all going through it, right? Within your business, so other departments, don't go in your silos, especially if you're working remote, because when you're working remote, you're probably focusing on just talking to people you need to talk to handle the transactions. But now's a great time to reach out and Zoom to the people in other departments. Customers, gosh, I really hope you're talking to customers. But not just the marketing people, not just the customer service people, but, the other groups, HR people, accounting people, develop those relationships with your customers as well, because they're part of the broader community, also. So very important to really drive community. I hear you, NA there. I'm in HR and tried. He told me you're going to do what I tell you to do. I've had that in my career.
A few times.
And we could spend a lot of time, a lot of coaching time really working through that. But there's a lot of methodologies you can do to get at that. And building that credibility, or sneaking it in, is what I call it.
That's right.
Yeah. Just figuring out ways you can get it and make it his idea.
That's right.
And it's just a lot of little tricks like that.
And some of the things that you shared with us earlier, Wade, around how you're showing up with that core, and the messaging around, I get it, we're in this together, let's resolve this together, and absolutely, I get that this is the direction we're going to go, and there may be some other things, let's weave in as we go. So there's an influence factor there that much of your message demonstrates. Yep,
yeah, absolutely. And again, a great way to build influence is really that core stuff. If you have the right mindset, you're going to find it's just going to come out from you naturally.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So I hope everybody kind of takes away from that just some really great tips and tricks that can help you be a beacon, because, so many people in the world today need that.
Yeah.
And if we're going to rely on our elected officials and our health experts and our business, our celebrity business commentators, talking heads, whatever you want to call them, they're not going to get the beacon they need. To be a really great beacon, you got to be local. You got to be speaking to them where they live.
Agreed. So I want to make sure folks know how to get a hold of you. Wade's website is aimtowinllc.com, and his email is wade.thomas@aimtowinllc.com. And very briefly, Wade, had you shared with us a couple of, I think, was it a bonus or a freebie or something that on your speakers talk? Did I see something like that?
I think so. Is that on the next slide?
Yeah, I didn't include it on the slides, but I thought you could speak about it to let people know how to take advantage of something that you've prepared for them.
Yeah, so what I have is, a couple things I want to add to what you said too. You can also follow me on Facebook, on the Instagrams, connect with me on LinkedIn.
Great. At Wade Thomas or Aim to Win?
So on LinkedIn, you're going to see it as Wade Thomas. On Facebook and Instagram, it's going to be Aim to Win. Perfect. Yep, and follow me there. But reach out to me on email, and I am offering a free 1-hour consultation, so we can talk through these things. And
super generous. Thank you for that. Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. So I want to say thank you to our other sponsors, and then make sure you guys know how to get a hold of us. Our trainers and coaches have put together a number of relevant crisis management, leadership, or competence programs specifically for the time at hand that are buy one, get one. So if you're looking to continue offering development services to any of your people, we would be happy to support you in designing a program that would work. The other thing that unfortunately we are offering is outplacement services. We know that many organizations are having to shift and change things, and they don't know that they'll be bringing everyone back. If you are looking into outplacement services, we have of course, COVID-19 sponsor specials, and I'd be happy to have a conversation with you about those. Thank you, Wade. Thank you. This was really great, and your principles are exactly what I think we need to be demonstrating right now as leaders.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed this, and I really hope that we can make a difference as a group of leaders.
I think so. I think so. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you so much, Wade.
Thank you.
Take care.